I wanted to start by saying thank you for coming. What a joy to be here. And I think back a couple of years, and there was COVID and fires and everything else, and the government says, okay, nobody can come. We had 7 come as a skeleton crew. We broadcast anyhow. Even with all that, arson, fire, and that, we missed one Sunday morning. And so it's just great to be together and enjoy having you here. We've been looking at a series from 1 Peter and, 2 Peter chapter 1, verses 5 through 7. And I like this graphic because it's somebody that's welding something together. And you have different welding methods. But what you're doing is you're building something. And the emphasis we're going to have this morning is growing, and growing in love. Most people would say, are you a loving person? Oh yeah, I'm a loving person. In fact, Corinth saw themselves as loving. They were pretty cantankerous there, and so Paul has to say in the 1 Corinthians letter, chapter 13, he said, now here's the qualities of it, and so look at yourself, and do I fit them? And so as we look at it should be 2 Peter, I left out the 2 there. Chapter 1, and beginning in verse 5, he says, add to your faith, then virtue, knowledge, self-control, perseverance, godliness, brotherly kindness, and the last one is love. We begin to think about ourselves and appreciate, you don't have to be a spiritual giant overnight, because it just doesn't happen that way, does it? In fact, there must be deliberate energy poured into achieving the spiritual qualities that you're trying to grow in. For this reason, a Christian can't hide behind others as we seek to mature and grow up as believers in Christ. We must take personal accountability for our own spiritual growth in our homes, in our schools, our workplaces, in sporting arenas, in our churches. The world must see the energy. And that's what you pour into it. And we're going to look at that this morning. And this is the last in that series of growing. And so as we think about what is Christian love, the Greek word you're familiar with is agape. And most people say, well, I'm a pretty loving person. One of the Greek dictionaries, lexicons by Loanida said, is to regard with affection and loving concern. And it's based on appreciation and high regard. Usually, and for decades and decades, we'd say to act in others' best interests, and it is that. But it's more than that. I hate them, they're a dirty dog, but if I have to, okay, I'll go ahead and give this extra 2 inches of consideration, but it's more than that, because it's designed to, am I willing to help others? And do it because I appreciate the merit they have, at least in some degree. Thayer says it denotes affection, goodwill, and benevolence. We generally haven't thought about that. We think about, well, phileo is a different Greek word, has that sense of friendship. But agape is, now you hate their guts, but I'll do it anyhow, but if you need me to do it. But it's really more than that. It's going to involve that attitude of a degree of appreciation, consideration, loving concern, and a willingness to do something about it. So as I thought about that, I thought, well, how am I going to share a lesson on love? And I thought, I'm going to do something a little bit different this time. From my standpoint, the preparation is I'm going to look at every passage in the Bible on love. There's hundreds of them, and I'm going to boil them down to just a couple of handful. So my thought is, then the Holy Spirit gets to speak. I don't mean that he took my hand and said, okay, Paul, write this and type it this way. It just means, here's how he revealed it. And I just say, here's some of the things that really strike us as significant. For instance, in 1 Peter chapter 4 and in verse 8, Peter says, keep fervent in your love for one another. One of the aspects in that Greek word means a constancy. People sometimes, they get started, they get hurt, they get discouraged. Oh yeah, I've given up on old brother Hebert over here because he didn't appreciate it, and so what's the use of me helping anybody? Well, that's all of life, where we get to make some choices. I want to stand up, speak up, and be counted. And so that aspect, don't quit. Not like Ephesus, who had left their first love. Not like Laodicea, who just kind of got apathetic. Yeah, whatever. So that attitude, I'm here. I want to help. I'd like to see us grow. And then he says, and that you be increasing. Philippians chapter 1 and verse 9, I pray that your love may abound still more. That word carries the idea of overabundance. Whatever you need, do that much and that much more again. Maybe you've heard sometimes individuals, maybe they've been teaching little kids class for years. Oh, okay, I've done my part. Well, how much is your part? I mean, you sign up for the Lord with a retirement benefit, and I'm going to work 4 years and then get a spiritual 401k. Or am I in the Army? I'm here. As long as I breathe and live and move, I've got function, I got purpose, I've got goals, and I want to keep on going. I was talking to somebody a number of us knew from years ago in Sumner. I preached 50 years ago there. There was a gal there named Eula Timmons. And boy, her life it really dealt her some hard things. And she got peripheral neuropathy. That is, the nerves in the extremities started dying little by little and started out. Well, she needed a cane, and a cane with 4 prongs for a little more stability, then a walker, then a wheelchair, and then eventually was in a hospital bed in her little apartment. But the thing that's fascinating, you say, why do you share that? Is she never stopped working. She would be one of my great Acts students, Bible class students, and we'd have my Bible class for everybody that could make it on Wednesday night, and on Thursday morning, whoever couldn't have made it on Wednesday night. And she would come in her little wheelchair with one of these flop-over little desk areas. And I'd mentioned this some time ago, that she was trying to grind up carrots or whatever, juice it, and limited dexterity, and her fingers went into the blades. 280 stitches. Emergency room on Wednesday night. Thursday morning is when we have Bible class. Eula Timmons showed up for Bible class in her wheelchair, in this big white gauze catcher's mitt over her hand, taking notes with her left hand and carried right on. I mean, did not stop at all. That's just inspirational. And then as she got where she couldn't even do that, she's in her hospital bed, in her apartment, teaching classes to teenage girls about Christian living. I said, man, it just doesn't stop. And so that attitude is, I'm not just here to serve the Lord for 2 or 3 weeks, or maybe a month and a half, or a year, or whenever I feel like quitting. I'm here for the duration. And that love is designed to be encompassing. I like Colossians chapter 3 and verse 14. It said, put on love. That is like you do your clothes. I look out there, everybody's dressed today. Well, what if Lane had shown up here and he's in a long-handled underwear? It's Lane, where's the rest of your clothes? I forgot to put them on. You said, well, my goodness, that's exciting. And so, but now think about that from the standpoint of love. If our attitude is, that's how I should be presented to the world. Jesus said, by this all men will know that you're my disciples. Somebody cuts you off in traffic, you get difficult, maybe customer service reps, or the computer, this or that doesn't work. How do I handle that? Do I handle it with grace and poise? And, well, imagine that, and then just go right on. And that it's life-defining. In Ephesians chapter 5 and down in verse 2, he says, walk in love. The Greek word is peripater. When you walk around, everything that you do, how you handle yourself on the job, in school, with your neighbors, in the congregation, with the government, everything you do has an attitude of, I have concern for others, and I'm willing to help as I have that opportunity. 1 Corinthians 16:14, let all be done in love. Wow. And so as we think about that, everybody has some different area to which we've grown. There's not some kind of chalkboard. So, all right, Cindy Barnett, I've been watching you, girl. And here you get a score of, oh, you got a 94 today. But that's not how it is. We're all growing at different rates. But let's develop that attitude. So really the core of the lesson is, where can we show love? And the reality is everywhere. And so here in, not only in Matthew 22, but I have this one from Mark chapter 12 and verse 30. It says, love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, all your mind, all your strength. There's all of you. Are you all in? Man, I am all in. When I get into stuff, I don't care if it's sports or spiritual, I'm all in, whatever we're doing. Just let's get involved, let's be successful, and go for it. We want to have that great attitude. So as you're here, do you love the Lord? All of you. And you're ready, I mean every part of you, and you're ready to serve him as he asks. One of the places, and there's a handful, like 2 John, there's only one chapter, and then down in verse 6, said, this is love, that we walk according to his commandments. That he said, this is what I want you to do. And we say, I'm in. Yeah, but that's hard to do. It is. I'm in. Yeah, but not everybody is willing to do that. I understand. I'm in. And so that attitude of, Lord, I'm in. I'm all in. Is if you need somebody, I'll do the very best that I can. I can't do it as well as Henry or Jake or somebody else, but I'll do the best that I can. You'll get the best I have every single time. Do we love the Lord that way? As I have that ardent connection, that spiritual appreciation. He's my Father. He's compassionate. I started out as a total train wreck, and now only one or two cars are off the tracks, but that God is so forgiving. Do we love our God and say, Father, I am all in. I love you with every bit of me. Where is it that we can show love? Well, one of the areas is just to anybody around us. In Matthew 22 and verse 39, he said, and the second command, outside of loving God with all your heart, soul, and mind, is loving your neighbor as yourself. And, well, how does that work? Of course, this particular graphic is one to represent the Good Samaritan. A Samaritan, kind of religious and ethnic, mixed background individual. The Jews didn't like them. They didn't like the Jews. They didn't worship at Jerusalem. And so you're really suspect in every area of life. And in Jesus' own parable, he has a priest, here's a religious guy, and a Levite, I'll say a religious helper. They walk by, say, man, look, that's somebody beat up. They actually get on the other side of the road to get away from this guy. And the mixed guy, the mixed up guy, the one that wouldn't have very much consideration, he's the guy that stopped. And he stopped, and he bandaged up the guy's wounds and poured oil and water on them, and trying to, with the limited medical treatment that he has, loads them on his own donkey, takes them to an inn, gives the innkeeper some money, and says, take care of him, and whatever else he needs, you make it happen, and I'll pay you when I come by. You go, wow. So what is our attitude? Is our attitude we're willing to help? Because one of the guys asked him, who's my neighbor? And he just shows, whoever you come across, maybe that's the person you can encourage. And because of that, they're so impressed. They're interested. Well, why do you do that for me? Well, somebody helped me out a long time ago when I was a troubled person and pointed me toward Jesus Christ up on Calvary. And sometimes it's them or their family, and so it just honors God and blesses them. And then, how about another area to show love? Well, the Christians loving Christians, not just people in general, but in John 13:34, he said, a new commandment I give to you, that you love one another as I've loved you. And I've mentioned this probably 6 dozen times, over the last 10 years, that particular verse is what really stung me about 10 years ago, because my family was just, everybody, including me, was just in the wrong direction, and somebody pointed me toward Christ. The rest of my family, that's not the direction they determined to go. And so, as brothers, we didn't even want to be around each other. It's just, we would be if you had to take care of Mom, but aside from that. And then he got disabled, and they said, Paul, you're the one. I thought, oh, no, I hadn't planned on that. It's going to be somebody else. It's going to be the government or their friends or somebody, not me. And it's like in God's providence that, guess what? You're the one. I go, oh, my goodness. And I had to think about that. And family talked to me about it. Said, look, Paul, here's your attitude. And I thought, and in fact, it was Mickey Bonner that had called me when I was down in the Virgin Islands taking care of my brother. And I thought, Mickey, and he said, how's he doing? I said, oh, not very good. He said, there's only one thing you can do when they're that bad is you tell them you love them. I said, oh, Mickey, that's not where our relationship is at all. He said, you got to tell them. And I thought, phew. And so I thought, I need to answer to Mickey honestly. And so the next day, took him out for lunch. And I said, those of you who've been around a while heard the story several times, but took him out to a little fish place, beautiful St. Thomas, Virgin Islands. And I thought, oh man, I got to tell him, but I don't want to tell him. But if I don't tell him, Mickey's going to ask me, why didn't you tell him? And so I realized I'm on the spot. I've got to. So as we were walking out, I said, Jack, I want to tell you something I hadn't told you before. He said, oh? I said, I love you. He said, yeah, me too. Okay, good, we're done. And so I thought, boy, that's pretty weak. And I felt bad about that. And so the next day we went out again to a little pizza place. And this time was from the heart. I had to think about it. There's nobody else to take care of him. Paul, you're it. And Mickey had said, Paul, you are the one that needs to do this. And I thought, man, I tell people love everybody. And I thought, well, where's your brother? And he said, well, he's not even there. He said, he's over there somewhere. And I had to face that. And so that next day I said, Jack, I really love you. And he said, I love you too. And that was the start. And that verse was kind of the springboard for me. So everybody, you have your own challenges and life background. So in Galatians chapter 5 and verse 13, he says, through love, serve one another. I'm going to hand this out. In fact, one of you guys start at one down your side, or maybe hand them, maybe just do it this way. Sign up if you like. It's for Lord's Supper and building cleaning. And just pass it back. It gets to the back, switch it over, it'll come forward. And you say, well, what do we do? I've never done building cleaning. Well, it takes about an hour. And you join up, and somebody else will sign up on the line with you. And if they don't, me or Mike or Frank or somebody else, we just join in and help you. And let me just say, so that you know, in building cleaning, we have different definitions. You say, we who? Well, we men from you women. So, women are real meticulous. I'm kind of, yeah, it's pretty good. And so Glenda says, Paul, you don't clean the building, you tidy. So, yeah, that's what I do. And so, but whatever, it makes it sufficient. So whether you'd like to do that or can't do that, and that's fine, and we line it up with somebody else that can do it at the same time, or we'll fill in, or if you get sick, we help you out. Or others, if you'd like to prepare the Lord's Supper, as those sheets go around, that'll be great. But there's all kinds of areas we serve each other. You get hurt, you get sick, you need something. We want to have that attitude. What do you need? What can we do to help? Because we're family here. Where can we show love? Think about this. You can show it in the family. And I like this graphic, ways to make your wife feel beautiful. Well, how do you do that? Well, you can tell them straight up, you are good looking, and here's what I like about you. Never compare your wife to other women negatively. Make sure she catches you looking at her. Communicate how valuable she is as a person. Give her gifts that she really responds to. I said, oh man, I think she would like this fishing reel that I have here. Maybe that is what she wanted, but it's not because you wanted it. Compliment her in front of the children. Really listen to her. You don't have to agree with her on everything, but it means a lot that they feel like, you've really heard me. Yes. And display her picture prominently in your home or office or on your phone. And think about this, and we'll touch on this on an adjacent point. Treat your own body and health with respect, because it blesses and honors her, because a lot of her livelihood and things that make life smooth depends on you. And so you need to be as healthy as you can be to take care of her. Ephesians chapter 5 and verse 25. Husbands, love your wives just as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her. That's sacrificially. And so that willingness, honey, I love you. You mean tons to me. What can I do to make it better? Where can we show love? Well, here's an interesting area, and that I don't think I've ever even mentioned this way before. But there's an interesting passage regarding your own selves, and this particular application is to men, but the thing would be equally valid for women. Husbands ought to love their wives as they love their own bodies. Now, he's not trying to encourage you. You make sure you start doing this. We men already do that. Hey, boy, I like whatever your thing is, pizza or apple pie or lasagna or something. But as you do things that please you, because it means a lot to you, you make sure you treat her that way as well. He says, for he who loves his wife loves himself. I thought, how about that? That the Bible talks about that assumes that we are interested in us pleasing us. He said, now you please your wife as readily as you would please you. See, well, what are some of those things that you do and that you generally want to do that you should be in good shape and help your wife? Get enough sleep. That's not always possible, but generally. Choose a healthy diet. Exercise regularly. Practice positive self-talk. I was talking to somebody just the other day. Philippians 4:13. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. Isaiah chapter 40 down in verse 31. That those who trust in the Lord will run and not grow weary. Will walk and never faint. Will rise up with wings like eagles. When you tell yourself that, I can do that. Well, what about this next challenge? I can handle that. How about that one? I'll take that next, whatever it is. We don't feel overwhelmed because God surrounds us. God's will guides us. Jesus Christ empowers us. We can do those things. And appreciating that if you need to grow spiritually, participate, flourish. Don't compare yourselves to others. Well, I don't do it as good as Henry. You don't have to do it as good as Henry. You just be a good you. Your value doesn't lie in how you look. You might need to let go of toxic friends that are just dragging you down, and be kind to yourself. Colossians chapter 4 and in verse 6. Let your speech be always with grace. So we want to talk to others positively. Do we do that to ourselves? You moron, you idiot, you failure. Well, you don't do that. Well, isn't that interesting? I guess I'm going to have to start on that one over again. And then set goals. Okay, here's the next step. Here's the next level I want to get to. I want to grow, if it's in your business, in spiritually, in your family, intellectually. And think about this. You are worthy of love. Where can we show love? You husbands, you're blessed when she feels appreciated. So where can we show love? Well, think about this. And this is maybe the toughest one. Our enemies. In Matthew 5:44 and following, it said, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you. How do you do that one? Oh, man, I am perfect. Next, Paul, you're not perfect at all on that one. Oh, man, I get it. And so how do you do that? Well, think about this. You see them as human. And they are flawed like you. And pray for them so you don't remain bitter. In Ephesians chapter 4 and verse 31, let all wrath and anger and bitterness and clamor, that is, be put away from you. So, okay. What am I going to do? I can pray for them, and I'm not going to react in an inappropriate way. Where can you show love? And that is loving life. 1 Peter chapter 3, verse 10 and following said, "Let him who means to love life and see good days refrain his tongue from evil and his lips from speaking guile." Let him turn away from evil and do good. And I got to thinking about that. What's involved in loving life? Now, your list will be different. But just last night, I started jotting down things that were neat to me. I looked at other people's lists, and they had ice cream on their list twice. So, okay, there's their value set. For me, it's a loving family, because I grew up in one that was so chaotic and dysfunctional. I appreciate sun shining in the morning, the ability to overcome hardships, appreciating what you have instead of wishing for more. Your children being healthy and happy, and friends who never give up on you, and being surrounded by positive, encouraging people, being able to bless others, enjoying the beauty of this world, smiles and laughter. I love laughing. I love teasing. I'm okay in being teased and having jokes played on me. Hope, a chance for a new beginning, encouraging other people, freedom of choice, kisses and hugs, learning from other people, smelling roses, inspirational music, God's providence for good food, tremendous friends, a loving congregation, forgiveness of sins, joyous exercise, and runner's high. Those endorphins go, phew. You go, ah. And the kindness of others, a home, because not everybody has one. Medical advances with healthcare professionals, relatively stable government. Think about how far you've come. Your health, your mobility, your sight, all the sensory features you have, your memory, your lungs, everything that makes it possible for you to be you. God, we are so grateful. Having a job, that is, if you want one. Mentors, autosave on computers. You remember the day that, it's all gone? I hate those kind of things. It could be enough money to pay your bills, or the value of email and texting, and harassment of being emailed and texted. But hot showers and a good night's sleep, and it goes on and on. I've got over 50 things I jotted down. God, you are so good to us. It is so good to be together. And so if you want to love life, well, here's what God says to do in order to enjoy it so it doesn't crash on us. Where can we show love? In our speech, in Ephesians 4:15, speaking the truth, how? In love. I say it this way, cut their legs out from under them, make them bleed, make them hurt. Well, yeah, you can, but God doesn't want us to do that. Speak the truth, but in a kind way so they get the point, but you're not eviscerating them. Inspiring others, in Hebrews 10:24 and following, consider how to provoke one another to love and good works. And that's one of the things you think about, well, what we get together from being together. But the other side of that coin is what you get to give. You encourage others, you inspire them. Hey, in fact, I remember when I was probably 21 years old and college student, going to University of Washington, trying to work and date Clinton, all this and that, and Ward Ellsworth said, well, hey, you're going to take more classes. And I said, how am I going to add to more? Well, you just add more, and oh yeah, and then a few more, and just keep going and adding, and you have the capacity to do that. Well, you do that by also encouraging others to help them take the next step. And then he says, and not forsaking the assembling of ourselves together as the habit of some. You can't encourage somebody if you're not here. And being here, think about who you can encourage and comment to and compliment for the growth that you've seen in them. Where can we show love? And the answer is everywhere in life. We're going to be singing this song, number 394. If you're here this morning and you say, I know what it takes to be baptized. I know what it takes to believe in Jesus. I know what it takes to repent of my sins and to confess his name. And I'm ready to do that. I'm ready to come forward this morning. We have the baptistry here. The water will be a nice, cool 42 degree, I don't know what temperature it is. But if you want to make that start in life, you can make it right here this morning. If you want the prayers of the saints, we'll pray with you. Any way we can help you. Won't we be standing and singing together song number 394, Leaning on the Everlasting Arms? Yes?